She's finally gone. We can live freely now." Her voice was filled with such joy. But while the music played so loudly, they didn't notice when the door opened slowly. That would come later. Much later. First, I had to escape from there. First, I had to survive the morning. I am 64 years old. This morning, my son Michael shoved me against the kitchen wall. He pushed me so hard that my head struck the tile. I felt the pain explode at the base of my skull, like white lightning. I heard my granddaughter Sarah scream from the hallway. She was terrified of her own father. I didn't cry in front of him. I refused to give him that satisfaction. I stood up slowly, clinging to what little dignity I had left, wearing it like an old shawl around my shoulders. Michael didn't even look at me. He turned and walked out to the patio where Linda, his wife, was watering the plants. My plants. The ones I had planted 20 years ago when I bought this house with money I earned as a seamstress. Every dollar from sewing wedding dresses, school uniforms, and curtains for neighbors went into this house. My own place where I wouldn't have to depend on anyone. But now they live here, and I'm the one who's in the way. I went to my room, the one that used to be the master bedroom, the one with a view of the garden. Now I sleep in the small room at the back, next to the water heater. Linda said they needed more space because Sarah was growing. I agreed. I always agree. I always give in. I always make myself small so they can fit more comfortably in my own home. I took a cloth bag from the closet, the same one I used 40 years ago when I came from a smaller city looking for a better life. Now I would use it to leave the life I had built. I packed clothes, just a few, a gray sweater, 2 blouses, a skirt, underwear, my blood pressure medication, the photograph of my husband, David. He died 15 years ago. Sometimes I think he was lucky not to have witnessed what our son became. I also packed the house papers, the documents proving this property is registered in my name, Emily Martinez, not Michael Martinez, not Linda, me, only me. I hid them at the bottom of the bag beneath the clothes. Something told me I was going to need them. Sarah came in without knocking. Her eyes were red and swollen. She wrapped her arms around my waist and started crying. I stroked her hair. She's 9 years old and already knows the taste of fear. I will never forgive Michael for that. Never. "Grandma, don't go," she told me in a broken voice. "I'm just leaving for a little while, my love. I lied. I'll be back soon. I promise." She shook her head. She knew I was lying. Children always know. I heard Linda's voice from the kitchen. She was on the phone, laughing loudly. I caught fragments of the conversation. "Yes, she's leaving. Finally, we can do whatever we want now. We're having a party this Saturday. Invite everyone. We're going to celebrate." My fingers froze on the bag zipper. A party? They were going to throw a party to celebrate that I was leaving, to celebrate that they had driven me out of my own house. I took a deep breath. I finished zipping the bag. I kissed Sarah's forehead. "Don't cry, my sweet girl. Everything is going to be all right. You'll see." She held me tighter. "I don't want you to go, Grandma. Please stay." But I couldn't stay anymore. Not after this. Not after my son had laid his hands on me. Not after hearing that woman laugh while planning a party in my dishonor. A party to celebrate my absence. I left the room with the bag slung over my shoulder. I walked through the living room, past the furniture I had bought piece by piece over the years, the wooden table David and I chose together when we got married, the armchair where I nursed Michael when he was a baby. Everything was still there, but it wasn't mine anymore. Nothing was mine. Linda was on the patio. She saw me pass by the glass door. She smiled, a small, victorious smile. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Her eyes said it all. "You're finally leaving. Finally, this house will be ours." Michael was sitting in a plastic chair, drinking a beer. He didn't even look up. I opened the front door. The afternoon sun hit me in the face. It was hot, a dry heat that burned my throat. I walked down the sidewalk without looking back. My legs were shaking. I didn't know where to go. I just knew I couldn't stay there one more minute. I crossed the street and passed in front of Susan's house, my neighbor. She was watering her garden. She saw me with a bag, and her expression changed. "Emily, what happened?" I shook my head. I couldn't speak. If I opened my mouth, I was going to fall apart. She dropped the hose and came closer. "Come inside. Let's go." She took my arm and led me into her house. I sat in her kitchen. Susan made me tea. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hold the cup. She didn't ask questions. She just looked at me with eyes full of understanding. Women like us don't need words to understand each other. Pain has its own language. I drank the tea in silence. My body felt heavy, tired, old. For the first time in my life, I felt truly old, not because of the years, but because of the weariness in my soul, because of the betrayal, because of the abandonment by the one I loved most in this world. I raised that boy alone after David died. I worked double shifts so he would never lack anything. I paid for his college. I supported him when he met Linda, even though something inside me said that woman was no good. But he loved her, and I just wanted him to be happy. So I kept quiet, like always. When they asked to stay in my house because they didn't have money for rent, I said yes. Of course, yes. He's my son. He's my family. It'll only be for a few months, they said, just until we save up for a down payment on an apartment. 6 months passed, then a year, then 2, and they never left. Little by little, they began to take control. Linda rearranged the furniture. Michael brought his things and replaced mine. My space grew smaller and smaller until one day I realized I was living like a guest in my own home. But I never thought we would come to this. I never thought my son would lay a hand on me. I never thought I would have to flee my own home, the place I built with so much sacrifice, with so much love. Susan prepared the guest room for me. "Rest, Emily. We'll talk tomorrow. You can stay as long as you need." I thanked her without finding my voice. I lay down in that unfamiliar bed. I closed my eyes, but I couldn't sleep. In my head, I heard only Linda's laughter. "We're going to have a party. We're going to celebrate." I spent the whole night awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking, remembering, wondering at what point everything went wrong. At what point I lost my son. Or maybe I never had him. Maybe he was always like this, and I was just too blind with love to see it. The next day, my whole body ached. My head, my back, my heart most of all. Susan brought me breakfast. "Eat something, please." I wasn't hungry, but I ate so as not to worry her, so I wouldn't be a burden in her house too. I spent 3 days like that, floating in a kind of fog, not knowing what to do or where to go. Susan gave me space. She took care of me without suffocating me. I will be eternally grateful to her for that. It was on the 3rd day that everything changed. Susan came home from outside with her phone in her hand. Her face was tense. "Emily, you have to see this." She showed me the screen. It was a picture of my house, my backyard. There were people everywhere. Tables full of food, beer bottles, a smoking grill, colorful balloons, music. A party. They were having the party. 30 years ago, I met David at a textile factory downtown. I was 34, he was 37. We both worked the same shift. He was in the cutting department. I was in sewing. We saw each other every day during lunch. One day, he offered me half of his sandwich because I had forgotten my food at home. That's how it all started. We got married 6 months later. A simple wedding, no luxuries. David didn't earn much, and neither did I. But we had something better than money. We had plans. We had dreams. We wanted our own house, a place to raise our children, a space that was just ours. We rented a small apartment on the outskirts, 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom with broken tiles. But it was our refuge. Michael was born there 2 years after we got married. I remember the first time I held him. He was so small, so fragile. He cried constantly. We barely slept. David worked during the day, and I worked at night, so there was always someone watching the baby. We were a team. We had each other. Michael grew up fast. He was a quiet child, observant, not like the other kids in the building who ran and screamed all day. He preferred to stay inside, reading or drawing. David said he was going to be an artist. I thought maybe an architect, something creative, something big. We gave him everything we could. Clean clothes, even if they were secondhand. Hot food every day, even if we ate less so he could have more. New school supplies at the start of every year, even if we had to pay in installments. We wanted him to have what we never had: opportunities, education, a future. When Michael was 8, we managed to buy a small plot of land. It was modest, in a neighborhood far from downtown with unpaved streets and incomplete utilities. But it was ours, our piece of land, our beginning. David and I built that house with our own hands. Well, he built it. I helped by carrying bricks, mixing cement, painting walls. On weekends, the three of us would go. Michael played in the rubble while we worked. It took us 3 years to finish it. 3 years of sacrifice, of saving, of not buying anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. I remember the day we moved in. Michael was 11. He ran all over the house, shouting with happiness. "Mom, I have my own room. Dad, look how big the yard is. We can plant trees." David and I hugged in the empty living room. "We did it," he told me. "We have a home." And we did. For years, we were happy there. I got a job at a fabric store, doing alterations and sewing on commission. David stayed at the factory, but got a promotion. He earned a little more, enough to live without anxiety, enough to pay for Michael's education. Our son finished high school with good grades. He wanted to study business administration. David was so proud. My son is going to college. My son is going to have a degree. My son isn't going to work with his hands like me. We paid his tuition, his books, his bus fare, everything. It was a heavy burden on our budget, but it was worth it. We were investing in his future, in him having a better life than ours. Michael was 21 when David started to feel sick. Tiredness, chest pain, shortness of breath. At first, we thought it was just work. Too many hours on his feet, too much physical effort. But it got worse. One day, he collapsed at the factory. They took him straight to the hospital. Heart failure. That's what the doctor said. David's heart was failing. He needed expensive medications, rest, constant care, maybe surgery. The bills piled up. I sold my jewelry, the few pieces I had. A ring my mother gave me. Gold earrings David gave me when Michael was born. It all went to appointments in medicine. David lasted 6 months. He passed away one morning in October. I was asleep next to him. I woke up and he was gone. He left just that quietly, without saying goodbye, without a farewell. I was left alone with Michael. He was 23, in his last year of college. I told him not to worry, that I would take care of everything, that he should finish his studies, that it was what his father would have wanted. I worked more than ever. I took every job I could. I sewed into the early morning. I slept 3 or 4 hours. The rest of the time, I was at the machine. Prom dresses, costumes for school festivals, nursing uniforms, curtains, tablecloths, whatever it was. I couldn't afford to turn anything down. Michael graduated. I was there at the ceremony, alone without David, but proud. My son has a college degree. I did it. We did it. After graduating, Michael got a job at a logistics company. He didn't earn much at first, but it was a start. He moved into a shared apartment with other guys. I stayed in the house alone. For the first time in years, the house was silent. A heavy, empty silence. I kept working. I kept sewing. It was the only thing I knew how to do, the only thing that kept me busy, that kept me from thinking too much about the loneliness. Michael came to visit me on Sundays. We ate together. He told me about his work, about his plans. He wanted to move up in the company, build a career, earn more. I listened happily. My sacrifice was worth it. It was on one of those visits when he told me he had met someone, a co-worker, Linda. He wanted me to meet her. He brought her the following Sunday. She was young, pretty, well-dressed. She smiled a lot, maybe too much. She talked about her plans with Michael, about how they wanted to live, about the house they wanted to have, the car they wanted to buy, the trips they wanted to take. Everything was, I want. Nothing about we have or we've achieved. Just plans for the future, dreams without foundations. Something in my stomach twisted that day, but I kept quiet. Michael looked at her with adoration. He was in love, and I wasn't going to be the bitter mother-in-law who ruins her son's happiness. They got married the next year, a medium-sized wedding in a rented hall. I paid for part of the expenses. I didn't have much, but I gave what I could. He was the only son I had, the only family I had left. At first, everything seemed fine. Michael kept visiting me. Linda came with him, always very polite, always very proper. She brought me flowers. She helped me set the table. She asked about my health. She seemed like a good woman. But things changed when Linda got pregnant. Suddenly, the visits became less frequent. Michael was busy. Linda was tired. They needed to save money. They needed to prepare for the baby. I understood, or so I told myself. Sarah was born in March, a beautiful little girl. When I saw her for the first time in the hospital, my heart melted. She looked identical to Michael when he was born. The same eyes, the same little nose. My granddaughter, my blood. The first few months were hard for them. Linda didn't sleep. Michael was exhausted from work and sleepless nights. Money was tight. Diapers were expensive. Formula was expensive. Everything was expensive. I helped them however I could. I brought them food. I gave them baby clothes I bought at the market. I gave them money when I could. Not much, but something. I wanted them to know they weren't alone. Sarah was 6 months old when Michael came to see me alone, without Linda, without the baby. He sat at the kitchen table. He wouldn't look me in the eye. "Mom, I need to ask you something." "Of course, son. Whatever you need." "It's just, we're really struggling financially. The apartment where we live is very expensive. And with Sarah, we need more space. Linda says she can't go on like this, that she's going crazy in that tiny place." I nodded, waiting. "We were wondering if we could stay here with you, just for a few months, until we save up for a down payment on our own place. We'd pay you some rent and help with the bills." My heart sped up. Part of me jumped for joy. My son, my granddaughter in my house. I wouldn't be alone. I would have family close. But another part, a small, quiet part, felt afraid. "Of course, son. This is your house. You can stay as long as you need." Michael smiled. He hugged me. "Thank you, Mom. You don't know how much this means to us." They moved in the following week. The first few days were good, almost perfect. It was nice to hear noise in the house again, to hear Sarah babbling, to see Michael come home from work, to have someone to eat dinner with. I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't eating while staring at the wall in silence. I had family with me. Linda seemed grateful. She helped me cook. We washed dishes together. We sat in the living room in the afternoons while Sarah slept. We talked about recipes, about the baby, about simple things. I thought that maybe I had been wrong about her. Maybe she was a good woman after all. But things started to change slowly. So slowly I almost didn't notice. First, it was the living room. Linda said they needed space for Sarah's things, the playpen, the toys, the high chair. "Of course," I told her. "Put whatever you need." She moved my favorite armchair, the one by the window. She pushed it into a corner against the wall. "It's not in the way here," she said. She put the playpen right where my armchair used to be. Then it was the kitchen. Linda said she needed to reorganize everything, that it was more practical for her since she cooked often. She moved my pots, my plates, my cups, everything I had arranged over 20 years. She put it where she wanted, where it was convenient for her. I would look for things, and they weren't where they had always been. She started buying things without asking me. A new microwave, an expensive blender, appliances that filled the kitchen counter. "We don't have space for all this," I told her once. She looked at me as if I were being difficult. "It's just that what you had was already very old, Emily. This is better, more modern." She stopped calling me Mom. She started calling me by my name, Emily, just like that, with no affection, as if I were her roommate, as if I weren't her husband's mother. Michael said nothing. He came home tired from work, ate dinner, watched television, went to sleep. He didn't notice the changes, or he didn't want to notice. Then it was my room, the master bedroom, the one with its own bathroom and a view of the garden. One day, Linda came in while I was folding laundry. She stood in the doorway, looking around. "This room is very big, Emily." "Yes, it's comfortable." "We're very cramped in Michael's old room with Sarah's crib. We barely fit, and she's growing. Soon she'll need a real bed." I felt a knot in my stomach. I knew where this was going. "You could move to the back room, the small one. I mean, you're alone. You don't need so much space. And there are 3 of us. It would be fairer." Fairer. That word burned in my chest. Fairer in my own house. Fairer to give up my room. The one I share with David. The one I painted myself. The one with the window where the sun comes in every morning. But I said nothing. I just nodded. "Okay, I'll move." It took me 2 days to move my things. Michael helped me carry the wardrobe. "Thanks, Mom," he said. "This helps a lot." Linda was already cleaning my room before I had even finished taking everything out. She hung new curtains, put on new sheets. She erased any trace of me in less than an hour. The back room is small and dark. It faces the water heater. You can hear it dripping all night. It doesn't have a closet. I had to put my clothes in boxes. The bed barely fits. But I told myself it was temporary, just a few months. Soon they would leave, and I would get my space back. 3 months passed, then 6. They weren't leaving. They never talked about leaving. When I asked how they were doing with saving for their apartment, Michael changed the subject. "It's tough, Mom. Everything is so expensive. We need more time." Linda started inviting people to the house. Her friends, her sisters. They came on Saturdays, stayed for hours, drank coffee, laughed loudly, used my cups, left everything dirty. I cleaned up after they left. One afternoon, I heard one of them ask, "Is this house yours, Linda?" "No, it's my mother-in-law's, but we live here." The other woman said something I couldn't quite hear. Linda laughed. "We'll see. We'll see." Those words echoed in my head. "We'll see." What was she planning? Michael started coming home later. He said there was traffic, that he had meetings, that work was demanding, but he smelled like beer. He arrived with red eyes, with wrinkled clothes. Linda said nothing to him. She didn't seem to care. I watched Sarah every afternoon. Linda said she needed to rest. That being with a child all day exhausted her. She would go out. She wouldn't say where. She would come back hours later with shopping bags, new clothes, shoes, makeup. She was spending money they supposedly didn't have. Sarah started calling me Mommy. I was the one who fed her, who bathed her, who put her to sleep. Linda got angry. "Don't teach her to call you that. I am her mom." I explained that the girl said on her own that I wasn't teaching her anything, but Linda didn't believe me. She started pulling Sarah away from me. When the girl came looking for me, Linda would call her, "Come with Mommy. Leave Grandma alone. She has things to do." Sarah would cry. She wanted to stay with me, but Linda insisted. The girl learned not to look for me when her mom was around. The house bills started to rise. Electricity, water, gas. Linda used the washing machine 3 times a day. She left lights on all over the house. She took 2 baths a day with the heater on maximum. When the bills arrived, I would panic. It's almost $200 for electricity. How can it be so much? Michael said he would pay half, but he never did. There was always an excuse. "This month is tough, Mom. Next month I'll pay you for 2 months together." But the next month would come, and the story repeated. I ended up paying for everything. My savings were starting to run out. Linda decided they needed a car. Michael said they didn't have money for a down payment. She insisted. "Everyone has a car. We can't keep using public transport. It looks bad." They ended up buying a used car. They took out a loan. Michael told me, "We'll pay it off in 3 years." The car was parked in my garage. The garage where David's car used to be, the one I had to sell after he died because I couldn't maintain it. Now, there was another car there, but it wasn't mine. Linda started complaining about everything. The house is old. The furniture is ugly. The walls need paint. The bathroom is outdated. You should remodel. Emily, do something. This looks like an old person's house. I didn't have money to remodel. I barely had enough for bills and food. But she insisted, if you're not going to fix the house, at least let us do it. We can pay little by little, make improvements. Michael hired a contractor. They started breaking down walls, changing floors, painting. I hadn't authorized any of it, but it was already done. The contractor gave me the bill. Linda had told him I would pay $500, $700, $900. My savings disappeared. When I complained, Michael got upset. We're improving your house, Mom. You should be grateful. This increases the property value. You're going to leave it to us someday anyway. So why are you complaining? Those words hurt me more than a punch. You're going to leave it to us someday. As if I were already dead. As if this house was already theirs. As if I were just taking up space until I was gone. Linda started making decisions without consulting me. She changed the refrigerator, bought a new living room set, threw out my patio pots because they were ugly, put in other plants, other things, all to her taste. I watched from the window of my small room as my house transformed into something I didn't recognize. On Sundays, Linda invited her family, her parents, her brothers. They filled the patio. They had barbecues, drank beer, laughed. I stayed in my room. Nobody invited me out. Nobody called me to eat. When I went out to get water, they looked at me as if I were interrupting, as if I shouldn't be there. One afternoon, Linda's mom asked me, "How long have you been living here, Emily?" I was confused. All my life. This is my house. The woman laughed awkwardly. Oh, right. It's just that Linda talks about this house as if it's hers. I got confused. Michael started yelling at me for small things, for nothing. If he didn't like the food, if I made noise in the morning, if I asked a question, he would raise his voice. He spoke to me as if I were a stupid child. Linda saw it and said nothing. Sometimes she smiled. Sarah was almost 2. She didn't look for me anymore. Linda had trained her well. When I tried to hold her, the girl turned her face away. She preferred her mom. Sometimes I watched her play in the yard from my window. I wanted to go out, play with her, but I knew Linda would get upset. I stopped cooking. Linda said she would take care of the food, that I was too old to be in the kitchen so much that I should rest. It sounded considerate, but it wasn't. It was another way of pushing me out, of taking another space from me. Now I couldn't even decide what to eat in my own house. Things got worse when Sarah turned 3. Linda organized a big party in the yard. She invited her whole family, her friends, the neighbors. She rented bounce houses, hired a clown, bought food for 50 people. I didn't participate in anything. Nobody asked my opinion. Nobody asked if I agreed. They just told me there would be a party on Saturday, as if I were a tenant being notified an event. The day of the party, I stayed in my room. I heard the music, the laughter, the screams of children playing. I peeked out the window once. I saw Sarah in a pink dress, blowing out the candles on her cake. Everyone was singing. Everyone was clapping. I wasn't there. I went out later to go to the bathroom. I crossed the living room. Some people looked at me. A lady asked me if I was a grandmother. I nodded. What a lovely party your daughter-in-law threw, right? The patio looks so nice. This house is beautiful. Thank you. I murmured, but it wasn't my party. It wasn't my decoration. Nothing was mine anymore. Linda saw me pass. She didn't greet me. She kept talking to her guests. Michael was by the grill with his brothers-in-law, drinking beer, laughing loudly. He didn't even turn to look at me. When I went back to my room, I heard someone ask, "And the lady who lives here, where is she?" Linda replied, "Oh, she's resting. She's elderly. She gets tired easily." As if I were an invalid. As if I couldn't be in my own yard because I was too old. That night, when everyone left, it was my turn to clean. Linda said she was exhausted. Michael said he had to work early the next day. I picked up the dirty plates, the empty bottles, the leftover food. I wiped the tables. I swept the patio. It took me hours. My back ached, but nobody helped me. The next day, Michael asked me for money. I need $200, Mom. What for, son? Expenses. Things for Sarah. The party ended up being more expensive than we thought. I felt something break inside me. You're asking me for money for a party you didn't even invite me to? Michael frowned. What do you mean, didn't invite you? You were here. You could have come out whenever you wanted. I didn't lock you in. But nobody called me. Nobody included me. He shrugged. Don't be dramatic, Mom. You always exaggerate everything. I didn't give him the money. It was the first time I said no. Michael got angry. He left, slamming the door. Linda came in later. I heard everything. You realize you're being very selfish? Michael works hard. He tries. And you don't even support him. You only think about yourself. I work too, I replied. I pay the bills for this house, the bills that you two run up. Linda laughed. Please, Emily, what work do you do? Your little sewing jobs? Your miserable pension? We maintain this house. We've improved it. If it were up to you, this place would still be a dump. That's not true. You don't pay anything. You live here for free. You eat for free. You spend my money as if it's yours. Linda looked at me with contempt. You know what? You're bitter because you're alone, because nobody needs you anymore. You should be grateful we're here, that we give you company. If it weren't for us, you'd be here dying of loneliness. Her words pierced me. I wanted to answer. I wanted to defend myself, but my voice wouldn't come. Linda left. I just stood there in the kitchen, shaking. I didn't eat dinner that night. I locked myself in my room. I cried in silence. For the first time, I thought about leaving, about abandoning everything. But where would I go? I had no one else. This was my house, my only place in the world. The following days were tense. Michael didn't speak to me. Linda didn't either. They ignored me. When I entered a room, they left. When I tried to talk to Sarah, Linda took her away. Come on, sweetie. Grandma's busy. One afternoon, a bill came from the bank, a loan I hadn't applied for, $5,000 in my name, with my signature, or something that looked like my signature. I called the bank. They told me the loan had been approved 2 months ago, that the money was already in my account, but I hadn't seen that money. It wasn't in my account. I looked for my papers, the house documents, my bank account papers, my ID. They weren't where I had left them. I searched my entire room. They were gone. I panicked. Someone had taken my documents. Someone had taken out a loan in my name. I went to find Michael. He was in the living room watching TV. Michael, I need to talk to you. What is it, Mom? I'm watching something. It's important. A bill came from the bank. A loan I didn't ask for. Michael didn't look at me. Oh, yeah. I took it out. We needed money to fix the roof. It was leaking. But it's a loan in my name, without my permission. That's illegal, Michael. You can't do that. He finally turned to look at me. Oh, Mom, don't exaggerate. I'm your son. What do you need permission for? Besides, it's the house. Your house. It benefits you, too. You stole my identity. You forged my signature. Michael stood up. His face changed. Just shut up. I'm sick of your complaints. Sick of everything bothering you. Sick of you always nagging. He had never spoken to me like that. Never with that violence. I took a step back. Michael followed me. You know what your problem is? You think you're still in charge here. That this house is yours. But it's not anymore. You don't decide anything. I'm in charge here. Linda and me, you just live here because we let you. His words hit me harder than any fist. Michael, this is my house. It's in my name. I built it. I paid for it. He laughed, a cold, bitter laugh. For now, but we'll see how long that lasts. I wanted to say something, defend myself, but Linda walked in. What's going on? Why are you yelling? Michael pointed at me. Your mother-in-law is hysterical because I took out a loan. Linda sighed. Oh, Emily, always making drama. That money was used for the house, so it doesn't leak everywhere. You should be grateful. I am not grateful. You are stealing from me. You are using my name, my documents, my credit. This is not legal. Linda crossed her arms. Are you going to sue us? Your own son? Your granddaughter's mother? Go ahead, do it. You'll look like the worst mother in the world. The worst grandmother. Nobody will believe you. Besides, Michael added, who's to say you didn't authorize that loan? Who's to say you didn't forget? You're old, Mom. You forget a lot of things. Maybe you even signed it and just don't remember. No, that's not true. I didn't sign anything. You forged my signature.